Hey guys, how's it going? How are we all? Are we all happy? How are you doing? I hope everything's well with you guys. We're on a Friday. Unbelievable. So nearly the weekend. I hope you're enjoying the last bit of the Friday, and I hope you're going to be getting a nice weekend ahead of you, and we'll be getting the WaveLab Cast and having a little play with it while you're at it. All right? Brilliant. Happy days. Just making sure you guys can hear me. Everything's okay. We have picture, we have vision, we have lights. Loads of lights. It's fab in here. It's like Christmas in here. In fact, the kids were playing Christmas songs earlier. I was just so depressed. It was unbelievable. Anyway, not in a bad humbug sense, but it's just the year is flying. Fabulous. Can't wait for Christmas. It's going to be great. So here we are. We will be talking about delivering your podcast, okay? And we'll be delivering your podcast through this thing called WaveLab Cast that we've been talking about. Now, this podcast is brought to you by Steinberg. And Steinberg bring you WaveLab, which is a family of software packages that go from super duper pro mastering to podcasting software that helps you out immensely. It does, like I keep saying to you, it does so much work under the hood that you don't have to worry about. Okay, it's got knobs, big knobs there, and you just twist the knob and it does tons of work under the hood that you don't have to worry about. So you don't need to know about all these massive desks and loads of gear and stuff. It does loads of stuff for you. And we've been through most of the aspects of it, okay? So if you look on the WaveLab channel, which you're currently on, you'll find a load of shows with my poster on there, okay? And each one goes through a different aspect, okay? So mixing with music or working with music, track inspector, the interface, loads of different stuff. Mixing was a biggie, big time, okay? Editing, so we went through the gamut of what this piece of software can do, okay? Amazing piece of kit, does all these things for you under the hood, and it just makes your life so much easier because you want to focus on producing your content as best you can. Yeah, brilliant. So that said, what we did do was I want to show you where to get it first, okay? So if I just pop up over here, this is the Steinberg website, okay? So go to more products, okay? And go to all products. And then just down here a wee bit, if you can see that there, you'll see WaveLab Cast, okay? Now that's not the correct price necessarily because there's loads of there's price points, if you will. And if ever you went and got some hardware with a piece of software license attached, you can basically upgrade that license. So the full version, $69.99. Education version is only $45. Okay, but if you upgrade from WaveLab LE 11.1, it's only $19. And again, WaveLab LE 10, 11, 9.5, 9, 8, 7, it's only $19. That's including that. Okay, so that's a fairly amazing price for such a kit that it does. Okay, so we talked about creating just an audio podcast, bringing in your audio interviews, let's say from wherever, into WaveLab Cast, editing them, placing them, bringing in your music, mixing the whole thing together. Editing the whole thing together, working with music, how to work with music, what's the best approach. We talked about recording techniques. We did all these brilliant things, and they're all in the WaveLab Cast channel. Okay, brilliant. So what we do, Tim Viner, how you doing? Have I pronounced that right? Weinhammer. I'm just so bad at pronunciation. It's unbelievable. Am I loud enough? I am loud enough. I'm swallowing the mic there. You're very welcome, sir. I hope you get loads from this. So what we're talking about tonight, Tim, is how to get your final edited podcast edited and mixed. Okay, and if you missed those shows, they're up on the WaveLab channel. Okay, just look for my poster. And what we'll do is you can look at those, have a look back. And what you could do whilst you do that, or before you do that, just download the demo from the website. Okay, you can get a full working version of the demo there. And you can bring in whatever samples you want. You can bring in your picture. We did picture editing, sound to picture and everything. Brilliant. So what we are going to look at tonight is, imagine we did all our beautiful recordings. Imagine we had our video. I'm just going to focus on audio tonight because video is another thing. You imagine you're a YouTuber, a TikToker, whatever, and you want to up your game. You want to bring your message to an audible level that people aren't been insulted with the quality of your audio presentation. Well, you can take the audio from your TikTok video, your YouTube video, or wherever you're editing it, say iMovie or whatever. Do your edit. Take your audio from there into WaveLab Cast and your video. And then you can put in your music, you can put in interviews, you can do your VO, you can mix the whole thing to the correct level. Then we're going to present you now tonight with how you've let's say master it or finish the final master, and then get that out into iMovie again, produce or render your video, and you're good to go. Okay, but what we look at tonight is podcasts. Okay, you've done your edit, you've done your mixing, you've done everything. You're really happy with what you have in front of you on your timeline. So what do you do then? Do you know? And it's really interesting because, again, WaveLab Cast takes over an awful lot of the work, right? And by you putting in some information for your hosting, okay, so just to give you a little background if you don't know, okay, so podcasts, okay, they're like radio shows or whatever. They're just an audio file, okay? Different carriers take different types of audio files, okay? We'll look at that in a minute. But what you're looking at is an audio file, a WAV, imagine, okay? Or whatever version of the WAV that your carrier needs. You upload that to their servers, whoever your carrier is, or maybe you have an FTP, which is a little bit of space on a hard drive somewhere out there in the internet. You upload it to there, and anyone that's looking at your podcast can read a file called an RSS. And when they're looking at that, if the RSS is updated, they get a little notification to say, oh, there's a new episode. It's right here. Okay. So either your FTP is doing that with an RSS on there, or your hosting platform, you know, Podbean, any of these things would have it, would do that automatically. Imagine I had Antique Car Podcast and you're all subscribers, and I put it up onto my Podbean or whatever platform, or Apple Podcasts. Apple would email all the subscribers, because I have so many of them, because the audio quality is amazing. Okay, brilliant, happy days. So that's what we'll be looking at. Okay, so let's have a wee look at this. This is what we call that's the browser. Cool. This is WaveLab Cast. So WaveLab Cast, and we've been through all of this before. Here's our timeline, different tracks. We've set up this rough edit. Okay, this is literally just a little, you know, demo that we did just to put things together for mixing, for editing, for but ducking with our music, because we have all these different functions per track. You know, we got our task inspector, we got the master section, we got our spectro. Look at this spectroscope up here, and then we got our meters up here, and we could flick over if we had any video in there, and we looked through all this before. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a wee look at what we do when we finish our lovely, lovely edit. Okay, and it's going to be amazing because our show is amazing. We have stunning information in there. We have a beautiful mix. We've cleaned up all our recordings via the track inspector, and we're in really, really good shape now. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to send it out into the world. Sound arts media. Hi everyone. Hi, how are you? I hope all's well. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. Looking forward to the weekend, I'm sure. So yeah, if you haven't got WaveLab Cast in your system already, go onto the Steinberg site, download the demo, and you can start playing, boom, straight away. Okay, happy days. Okay, few things to look at first. Okay, we have, so I'm kind of going to jump around. I want you to be aware that this is our work window, our workspace that we're working to. So there's your timeline from the start of your show all the way through to the end. Okay, that's your timeline. We have a multi-track session here, and that's called an audio montage. Okay, it's an audio montage. Now, there's another area of WaveLab Cast, okay, that would be for stereo audio files, okay? And that's for you literally just to grab in an audio file, do a little bit of work on it, spit it out again. It's really, really handy for just pulling in stuff and doing stuff really quickly. Brilliant. So what we do is we have a couple of options here, how we get our final lovely, lovely show into that section, because that section is a whole different section again that I want to show you. I want to show you because it has certain functions that are going to be mega handy for anyone, YouTubers, TikTokers, people putting stuff on Apple iTunes. It's just, there's a couple of tools in there, people, that you will just blow your mind. Okay, blow your mind. And I know for a fact that there's other software out there that does it, and it costs an absolute arm and a leg. And WaveLab Cast has those functions in there, and it just does it. It's part of the package. There's no LE version. There's no, light version. You get the whole deal in the one box. Fabulous work. Fabulous work. Okay, happy days. Now, I'm so happy with my edit. I'm so happy with my mix. It's great. Okay. We have a couple of options here. Okay. We can go to upload our episode. Do you see that? Can you see that? You can there. Okay. So if I click on that, I shoot over to this thing here. Okay. See your publish tab? I'm going to go back here. That's your upload episode. But if I go to file and go to podcast down here, I get the same window. Okay. Now, if you can see Spreaker, Podbean, SoundCloud, Buzzsprout, Castoff, I forgot the E, and Captivate. Okay, you got those hosting things already set up in there. You get a tab down here. You see that? Authorize. If I click on that, it's going to lash off to these websites and ask you to sign in. So what'll happen is, if I could just flick over there, I've just clicked on that. Let me just show you what happened there. We went straight over here, and it wants us to sign in. If you don't have an account, sign up. Okay. And basically, that's because I had Spreaker selected. If I go to Captivate and go authorize, again, I'll put in my user ID, I'll put in my APTK, okay, and it'll shoot up to my specific space. Okay, brilliant. So WaveLab Cast remembers these credentials. So every time you go and make up a beautiful new podcast with all your amazing information and do your lovely mix and your cleanup and da-da-da-da, you only have to publish to your space if that's where you upload to all the time by clicking one button all the time. It's brilliant. Happy days. So again, remember, it's in your file. Go down to podcast and you got all these credentials here. So you're saying to me, yeah, but what if I'm not signed up to any of these people? Well, you can also host your podcast on a an FTP server, okay, which is a server up on the internet. You actually could run an FTP server from your computer at home as long as it's got internet access or wherever, okay? And if you do that, you need a little file on there called an RSS, okay? The RSS basically turns around to the world and says, listen, all the software that will be looking at that, say your podcast software will be looking at the RSS feed. Imagine we had Keith's Vintage Motorcycle podcast, and you have all your podcasts listed in the in your app, okay? So as soon as I click on Keith's Vintage Motorcycle podcast, it goes and checks the RSS on whatever server that podcast is sitting on. And it goes, excuse me, Mr. RSS, what's the story? Do we have any new episodes? And then suddenly there's a little bit of script in your RSS. And it says, yeah, we've a new episode and it's called this. And they go, right, I'll just tell your man. So the app lashes back to your phone and goes, oi, we've a new episode. And we're all happy. Okay. So how do we deal with that? Okay. Again, super, super simple. Okay. Look at this. Create RSS feed. Okay. And this looks maybe complicated to some people. It's not. It totally isn't. So there's the title of your podcast. So imagine that's Keith's Vintage Motorcycle. Okay, podcast. That's all it is. The audio file, which is on my computer, okay? And this is episode whatever. You'll have the list of all your episodes. It'll recognize that there's a new one. This is the internet link. The internet link is the address, okay? The address of your FTP server or wherever you're holding this, okay? Now, the really handy thing is, okay? See that? There's a as most recent episode. So there's an automatic thing going on there already, okay? The next thing is we have iTunes extension. So if you are uploading to iTunes, they want a little bit more information. Okay, simple. There's your author, the owner name, the owner email, the picture of your podcast. You look at your podcast software, that's where you go. The new URL, etc., wherever you keep it, okay? You can check that off if you need to, but, if you're putting it up to iTunes, I think it would be a really, really good idea to keep that checked. Okay, so there's a few things here that you could be looking at. Okay, we can set up a new RRS or SS, too many acronyms. Okay, we could duplicate one if we have all the settings. Imagine I had a new podcast, Keith's Vintage Car Podcast, but I'm leaving all my podcasts in the same place. That's what I would do. I'd duplicate it there, just change the title, maybe the area where it is. I'd have all my vintage car podcasts in a specific folder and the motorcycle ones in another specific folder. And that would be reflected here in my URL, okay? And the description and the iTunes information, okay? So update all items. So that just basically updates the RSS sitting on your server, okay? There's your FTP settings. If you have your podcast sitting on your FTP server, which is sitting in your front room maybe, that's the settings that you check there. You click on these, you put in the host, the username, the password, whatever the feed is, okay? And that stays there. So it's looking at the same point every time. So you go to publish, it goes straight up into the same place. Okay? So it's super, super handy and super, super simple. Okay? It looks a little complicated, but believe me, it's not. It is absolutely not. All you're saying to all the apps out there is, one, where do I put my podcast? You have a documents folder in your computer, so you put your documents into the documents folder, okay? And it's the same for your podcasts. You find a specific area that is available on the internet for people to be able to find the podcast, or you tell iTunes where it is, or you tell Spreaker where it is, all these things. That's the audio file sitting on the server somewhere, whether it's a hosted server or it's your own FTP. You upload your RSS and it goes, we're over here, we have a new episode. And then people literally on their app just goes to that space, that FTP, or to Podbean or wherever, and says, oh, that's the URL. A URL, you might recognize them in internet pages as http://www. whatever, okay? Steinberg.net, okay? That's a URL. It's literally like your address in your house, 10 Main Street. Joe Blogs, 10 Main Street. That's where it lives. Okay. And then basically the / or, you know, you have your folder of motorcycle podcasts and you have your folder of vintage car podcasts. Okay. And each of those is, say, a specific room, or a unit, or a PO box, or something like that, you know. So that's the setup, and that's how super simple this is. And that extra iTunes extension is literally just, if you're telling iTunes about your podcast, it lives over here. This is a little bit of information about it. Look, I'll give you the picture as well, which is the poster for your podcast. And you're rocking and rolling. Absolutely rocking and rolling. So it's super simple to be able to deliver to these areas. Okay, let's look at this. Publish, and then you go, and I'm going back here. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I left my phone on. Excuse me. So there we go. The RSS. I'm getting rid of that. I'm not going to save this, excuse me, okay? I'm not going to save this because we're only playing tonight, okay? I want to explain what's going on with whatever. Any questions, Tim Weinheimer? I think I got that right. I think. Our Sound Arts Media. Everyone okay? Everyone getting it? If you have any questions, just stop me at any stage and say, oh, Keith, can we go back and have a little think about such and such? Because you know what? If you're thinking it, maybe somebody else is in the room thinking it as well, and they're just not as, maybe they just don't want to put their hand up. Yeah, brilliant. So, that's that. So how do we make our, the file that we have? Because if you're looking at this timeline, you're looking at a file there, you're looking at a file here, look at, that's all edited file there, bit of file here, all over the place, really, okay? So we've mixed and edited our show. So the thing to do now is to render it. And to render it is literally just getting all those tracks that are playing out, these tracks here, that one along there, this one along here, this one along here, this one along here. So imagine we turn that on its side and put a funnel underneath it. Okay? All those bits fall down into the funnel, into one little spout, and they mishmash and into one unit, which we're going to call an audio file. Okay? So that audio file is what we upload to the FTP or the, wherever we're going, the podcast. Look at this, up to Podbean or SoundCloud or any of these things here. Okay? And it's encoding it to an MP3. See that? Because all these hosts love that version of an audio file. Okay? Now, before we do any of that, there's some really, really important stuff we should be thinking about. Okay? We looked at mixing a couple of shows ago. You'll find it on the WaveLab Cast. So I'm just going to play this, okay? Oh, sorry. Can you all hear that? I can't hear that. Why can't I hear that? Anyway. So this is our show playing. Let me just go back here and just check my audio connection. Yeah, it's all good. Okay. So what we did was, we just did a bit of this. sorry, I'm just going to do that. And then what I'm thinking is, I'm just going to open that because I can't hear that. But anyway, we'll get it back in a second. So when all the stuff falls down into the funnel, we get our audio file to go up onto the FTP. Okay? Now, this is super, super, super important. And let me tell you why. Working in TV and film and all that sort of stuff every single day, I have to work to specific standards. Okay? So, you know, when some people would produce some music, okay, a lot in the mastering would be trying to get it as loud as possible. So your mastering would be one piece of music for an album, imagine, track 1, track 2, track 3, and you're keeping that all consistent. Okay, you've got nice and loud relative to this and relative to this, and they're all pretty much up there, okay? But you can't just grab an album or an audio file and put it out onto the TV, because TV work to standards, okay? So I have to work to a specific, what they call level, okay? Which is not just the loudest thing ever, okay? It's basically, in Europe, it's called EBU or 128. And that catchy little name is the standard I work to for TV. So it has to be at a specific loudness. Okay, now I think we've mentioned loudness before. Loudness is how loud the show is, an average over the duration of that show. Okay, now, why do I even mention this when we're not even talking about podcasts or anything like that? The reason I say this is because there are specific standards for different companies around the internet. YouTube, Amazon, iTunes, all these different companies. Okay, they're all in and around, not a million miles away from each other, but ultimately they have standards. Okay, and we have to stick to those standards, right? So, with saying that, okay, we also have to deliver that file, like I do every day with all the audio I produce for TV. We have to deliver to that platform at a specific standard, okay? Okay, so let's just keep that to mind, okay? And I'm just going to render this out. So let's have a listen to just our bit of show here. Bit of music. Oh, excuse me.
On this week's podcast, we'll be talking about the game Borderlands.
Okay.
And Borderlands is culturally very significant, according to some gamers.
And we've all heard this before because we've been playing with this edit before, okay? So what we do is we need to render this. And that's where the spout of the funnel come. Okay, all the bits, all the elements of all your podcast come down the spout into one audio file. So instead of uploading straight to Podbean or wherever, I'm going to go render. Okay, now see where this WaveLab Cast session is. Okay, see the little close tab? I don't want to close that. I'm just showing you, be aware of this area. Okay, because this happens super quick. It doesn't happen in real time. So I'm going to click render. Okay, I want the whole montage, okay, like from start to finish. Yeah, it's going to be a named file. Let's call it Keats vintage motorcycle. Talk amongst yourselves. Did I even get that right? I did. Well done me. Podcast, right? And that's where we're going to put it. That's into a thing. The format's going to be just as a WAV. Now, the reason why I would do that is because it's basically, it's standard. I kind of just think in those areas. Okay. Now, you got a few options here because WAVs, we use them in broadcast all the time. Sorry. We have the bypassed master section because we don't want to do that because we basically had some compression on there. Do you remember? We talked about compression as well, so it's really important to go back and have a listen to that show. we went through compression and how it helps control all those levels of all those different audio files in your podcast. Okay, so have a look back at that episode. I have some compression on there, so do not want to bypass the master section. And a tail, reverb. So if you did have a hang for some reverb that's on, say, some music or some voice or whatever, it'll keep an eye on that. Okay, so open resulting audio file, which is what we want to do. Bypass master section. Yeah, well, we'll do that anyway. We're going to check that because I don't want the same compression on the show again, if you understand what I mean. Okay, so on my original montage, I have some compression just to control everything, and it's just nicely keeping an eye on everything. Okay, I don't want that same compression on the master output of WaveLab Cast again for the audio file we're about to create. Do you understand what I mean? Okay, brilliant. Then you got a big old button here, and I'm going to get my big fat head out of the way. I go here, Pro Tools. I go Start. Okay, I click that, and look at that. Bing. See, we had our WaveLab Cast session here, and we had Keith Vintage Motorcycle Podcast. Okay, so it's produced a stereo file for us, and you can have a listen to that. Okay.
On this week's podcast, we'll be talking about the game Borderlands, and Borderlands is culturally very significant according to some gamers that are playing it. We'll be talking to
So we recognize the show. Now we've gone from all these different audio files to a stereo file. And this is what we'll be uploading to our FTP or our Podbean or our whatever. But there's a couple of things, and these are super important tools that we need to be looking at in this. See the difference between this session and this session, okay? You got 1, 2 tracks. That's your left and your right, okay? That's your left and your right. That's stereo. Whereas we got loads of stereo stuff here, 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 and a mono track there. So everything's fallen down the funnel and gave us this master track, okay? And that's what we want to publish to our FTP, etc. Yeah, brilliant. Happy days. Now, few things to look at here, okay? This is a different window. This is all the stereo window, okay? So you get your different tools there, which is great. Your view section, okay? We can delete whatever we wanted to select. Imagine that was a glitch there, and we just go and we click delete, and there we go, okay? And we got a crop there as well, copy and paste. Now, here's a super, super duper important section. Okay, we can all see that. Okay, we have gain. Gain is basically adding or increasing the volume of your show. So if it's really quiet, we need to pump it up by, here you see 1 + 3 + 6, or if it's too loud, you bring it down. These are only the factory presets. You can click on this and you can type in exactly what you want to increase it by. Yeah, brilliant. Then you have your level, which is under there, okay? There, do you remember I was saying to you, EBU or 128? See that standard? That's the broadcast standard for Europe. EBU is the European Broadcasting Unit, or 128 is the standard, okay? So if this was going to TV, okay, I'd select that, and I go here, and I go to EBU or 128, click on that, and now this has brought the level up to EBU or 128. So this should be safe enough for TV, okay? Now, this is the super important one that we need to really, really focus on. Loudness. Okay, loudness of a show is the average loudness over the show, and remember, each of these different companies around the internet have specific loudness standards. How do I know that? Have a look at this. See here, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Apple Podcast. There we go again. Broadcast recommendations, EBU or 128. Okay, Deezer, loudness. Netflix, Spotify, Spotify Loud, Tidal, and YouTube. Okay, So I really want you to have a look at, there's our original mix. Okay, great. Before I go in here, let me just show you the difference. Okay, so let's just go to EBU or 128 and I click on that. It goes off and there you go. See that increase? So the loudness of this whole file is fine for broadcast. Now, if I just lash up to here, YouTube, and do the same thing, normalize it for loudness, it's doing its thing. Look at the difference in the waveform. Now, I haven't touched anything. It's grabbed all that audio and fired it up into the loudness realm for YouTube, okay, which is probably -13 in and around, okay? A lot of podcasts are running around -16, okay? LUFS is the standard, let's say, as opposed to the OR128, which is the standard for broadcast. Okay, it's a measurement. Okay, it's like a unit measurement. Okay, LUFS. It's like inches or centimeters or miles or whatever. It's a unit of measurement. Okay, so see the difference there between that and broadcast. Broadcast is actually fairly quiet, believe it or not. Okay. Another amazing tool. Okay, let's just work my way across this direction. Okay, you got your fade in, your fade out. So imagine there was a big honking just stop there. I can just put in a little fade out just to soften things on the way out of the end of the show. Okay, brilliant. Now I can grab sections that I mute. I can a silence generator and a beep sensor. So do you remember the effing and the blind and we were talking about a few shows ago? So if there's curses in there and you want to block them up, this is your beep sensor. So around here he put in a few F words, so we can just click on that and we can select the frequency and basically click apply, and that puts in a beep for us. Okay, so imagine
freeze. You know, you to collect it, to have it.
That was some rant he had there, you know. So that's what your beep sensor does. Now look at this. This is a super important tool. Again, I want you looking at these super important tools if you can, by getting your hands on the demo, right? I'm talking about EBU 1 or 128 and loudness and all these things. See here, we got a loudness tab here. Okay, this is your global analysis tool. Okay, so I'm just going to select the whole show. Okay, let me just get that. I'm going to global analysis. I'm clicking on that and I'm going analyze. Okay, so it goes off and has a look at everything there. Okay, and now you see your average loudness is -23. See that? -23. Okay, so that's fine. There's your loudness range. It gives you a few bits of information here that can help you determine what you need to do with your mix. Do you need to bring up the volume? Do you need to put specific loudness on there, if you understand what I mean? Okay, super tool, absolutely super tool. Oh, and look at this one. This is fancy. See that? Ooh, you get a frequency analysis of your whole show. Pretty, huh? Anyway, that's the frequency analysis thing there. Okay, so I'm going back to my loudness. I'm going to put this show up on Apple Podcasts, I may imagine. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. It goes off and it does its thing. And now that loudness for my show is appropriate to Apple Podcasts. Okay, get it? See? There we go. There's all the parameters that you're dealing with. Whereas the drop-down menu here, you just go to whichever specific service you're uploading to. Okay? You all getting that? You're all very quiet today here. You're all very, very quiet. Brilliant. And then, see this? You got your upload again. So now, when we click our authorize, it goes off and logs into my account. That's fine. That's all done. All I have to do is click upload. Boom. Sucks it up into the internet. says to SoundCloud, Budsprout, Blueberry, all these things, hey, we've got a new show. Brilliant. Okay. And then your app goes, checks its appropriate RSS, and you're away. It tells the world, we have a new show. The loudness of the show. I don't know if you've ever gone onto YouTube. Here, I got to take these off. Sorry. If you've gone onto YouTube, there's a really, really interesting experiment you can do. A lot of these shows now. Okay, we're kind of still in the wild west of the internet, in that there are different companies with different standards, and yes, it is a start that they're actually looking at loudness throughout the content that's going out on the platform, which is brilliant. Okay, but the standards for Netflix and for broadcast and all are really, really tight. Okay, and why do we have loudness standards in the first place? My goodness, we had this conversation a good few shows ago, but if you haven't seen that, in the bad old days before the European Broadcasting Union and other broadcasting units around the world got together and says, listen, let's come up with these loudness standards, there was a thing that whoever was producing the show, they wanted it as loud as possible. So you had a huge dynamic in all your broadcast. So imagine you're watching a TV show. You got TV show, TV show, TV show. Here, I'll go big on this if you don't mind, so you can see what I'm talking about. So you got TV show, ad break, commercial break, ads, 3-4 ads, imagine, okay? And all of these are vying to be the loudest. So your TV show is nice level. You've put your remote control to a specific level and you're listening to the TV show. Then suddenly the ads come on. This is really loud. Oh my goodness. So you're grabbing your remote control and you're whacking down the volume. Then this is even louder. And then this isn't as loud, but this is even louder. So you're on the remote control all the time. And I don't know if you remember, you're watching a movie on the TV and it's so quiet, it's unbelievable, and you're turning up the quiet bit. John Wayne is going across the prairie and all you're seeing is the long shot, and it's all you can hear is the air and the atmosphere and the wind, and then the ads come on and it's like really, really, really loud. Okay, so the broadcasting units got together and said, we can't be doing this anymore, this is just crazy. So the loudness standards gives us a loudness measurement, okay, over the start of a show to the end of the show. And the average loudness of that thing is exactly the same as the, in theory, average loudness of ad 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we're in a much better world where there's not that crazy variance and we're on the remote control up and down, up and down, up and down all night watching our TV. When I say you're watching YouTube and the wild west of the internet loudness standards, okay, you can go onto YouTube and some videos are very, very, very quiet. And then other videos are really loud, okay? Again, it's harking back to that craziness of years ago on TV. Excuse me, sorry. Yes, they're starting to work on loudness standards, but there's a bit to go yet, okay? A really, really interesting thing you can look at is on YouTube. If you right click on the video, you can see stats for nerds, and on there is the sound loudness, the audio loudness. So if you upload a video to YouTube, okay, and it's too loud for their standards, they will drag your whole show down, okay, to make it quieter and try and average it out over its platform from one video to the next. Now, it's not an exact science. They don't always get it right, but there's a bit more of a consistency in there. So right click on the video window, go to Stats for Nerds, and have a listen to a loud video on YouTube, and then have a look at a quiet video on YouTube. Okay, so what you're trying to avoid is them touching your masterpiece in the first place, because you don't want it too loud that it's pulled down and now it sounds really quiet. You want it to be consistent with the average loudness of the rest of the platform, if you understand what I mean. And that's why we're dealing with these different standards and loudness levels for the different platforms. Okay, so let me just flick back here again just to show you. Okay, again, loudness. We click on the tab here. You get Amazon Music, you get Apple Music, Apple Podcast, EBUR 128. Okay, for maybe anyone that's working in delivering stuff to TV. Netflix, Spotify Loud Title, YouTube. So there's YouTube. There's your normalized loudness for YouTube. So yes, if you're producing a video and you do all your sound work in WaveLab Cast and you're rendering out your new audio, your master audio, render it out of WaveLab Cast, take it into iMovie, okay? If you put the YouTube loudness on there, you will be consistent with the rest of the platform. Your sound will be perfect for the rest of the platform, and they don't need to touch it, okay? They don't need to touch it, so it will sound consistent throughout. And that's what it's all about. That's what all these loudness standards are all about. Making everything consistently sound consistent, okay? Again, there's a couple of different standards out in the internet. I think -16 for most podcasts. That would be Apple Podcast. LUFS, do you remember I mentioned that unit? -16. -13 for YouTube, I think it is, or -14. But if you Google it, you can Google the, say, loudness standards for the different platforms. And I know there's a graphic flying around because I've used it before with some of my students, and it's a list. That's all it is. It's a list, and you can see exactly what's going on there. So imagine, okay, not that it would ever happen, you had a specific loudness to deliver to, and you're in your WaveLab Cast. You can click on your loudness, put in your loudness to achieve. Do you see that? Oh, sorry, excuse me. Here we go. Let me go back here. I'm going back here again. So I'm just going to get rid of that and show you where that is. Instead of any of these standards that you had to deliver, imagine you click on loudness, put in your loudness to achieve. Okay. And you just type that in there. Click apply, and your whole show will be at that loudness standard. Yeah? How hard is that? Is everyone completely lost? And everyone completely freaked out now? Seriously, it makes everyone's life so much happier, so much more pleasant. Your ears aren't bleeding by the end of an evening's in front of the TV. You know, it's seriously important, and it's seriously important to get your content out there at the correct level before you upload to your FTP or your any of your platforms there. Look at these platforms, just to get it right, okay? WaveLab Cast is taking care of most of that work for you, okay? And it makes super easy to make sure that that's okay. Because if I go back here, okay, I'm just going to go to my if you look at your meters here, sorry, excuse me, back here again. If you look at your meters, okay? So we're playing our music at a specific level. If we bang it up right up to -6, and then we render out our show, and we come up here, and it's all lashed out at -6. We want to upload it to Apple Podcast. Click on that. It'll go, and it'll make sure that it's safe for Apple Podcasts, and they're not going to go in and try and mess with your file by bringing it down in volume or bringing it up in volume or doing whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it's worth, what I would suggest, okay, and this is literally just after 30 years of mixing TV and film and game and all that sort of stuff in the world. This is my tuppence worth, if you will, right? It's worth your while to compartmentalize your workflow, okay? If you're a content creator, you have tons of jobs to do. You have your show structure, you have your script, you have the fact that you have to go out and record your interviews, you have to go and source your music, you have to bring all your recordings back home, record your script for maybe voiceover, then you got to put it all together, you got to edit all your interviews, you got to put it together with the music and put your show together, okay? So there's a lot to do there, okay? When you've put your show together, then you got to move into edit mode, okay? And when I say edit, I'm referring to cleaning up and stuff like that as well, okay? So as you're editing your show, you're going to come across little pieces of audio that are awful. So you go to your track inspector and you work on cleaning things up, de-essing noise, stuff like that. Then you can get creative, putting reverbs on there and stuff like that as well, okay? You have a whole workflow to come to one little point, okay? Now, I do this all the time in my work day, okay? I get all the work done. I get all the mixing done. I get all the editing done. I get everything done, and I come to a point where I have to stop at a point, and that point has to be the point that I say, yes, it's right. I'm happy with it, okay? A pal of mine I'm working with at the moment was talking about some guy who said about you never finish an album, you just kind of abandon it at some stage because you'll never be finished with it, okay? I've learned over the past 30 years, you have to come to a point, especially if you're working to a deadline and especially if you're working with a client. That deadline has to be the deadline. You have to stop and you have to be happy at that point, okay? When you get to that point, then you have to move into another mode, okay? And that is a super important area, this final compartment. Deliverables is what we call them, okay? Deliverables. And it's a really tedious and can be very boring area of production, okay? But it's super duper important. And that's why I say it's a whole different compartment. Because what you've got to do is you have to put away all the creative, all the niceness of playing with music and editing your interviews and talking about the lovely stuff that you love doing about. Now you're itching to get it out. Oh, I can't wait to get it out and show the world in this beautiful show. But if you race the last compartment, the last hurdle, okay, you'll do yourself a huge disservice to all the other work, okay? All the other work brought you to this point. Now you've really got to go away, have a cup of tea, and get yourself out of that whole workflow. And you need to sit down with your analytical mind and sit down and make sure that you do the last couple of tasks impeccably. Because remember I was saying to you about YouTube, if you don't get it right, they'll pull the level of your show right down. And then everyone's going, what? Or if it's way too low, they'll bring it right up. And then it mightn't be enough. Do you know? So you got to be super, super, super careful at the last hurdle. Okay? Now, WaveLab Cast help you hugely with those loudness standards already preset in there. It also helps you hugely by when you upload your episode, that it sends it up in the right, correct format so it won't get rejected. So now you have belt and braces. Okay? And it's given to you in the same program. But it is super important to make sure that you're okay. Have a look at the global analysis. Go out and Google loudness standards for the different platforms. Get those figures into your head so it's natural to you to be able to remember them really quickly, so as you can just hit that ground running. If you're producing your podcast and you got your stereo file and it has to be at a specific level, which is -16 loudness standard, okay, type it in to that window, -16, so you know exactly, because I'm just going to shoot over here real quick. If I don't know that any of these are correct for the platform that I'm uploading to, then you know for sure that if you type in the correct number here, okay, -16, imagine, then I know everything will be good. Everything will be okay. Click apply and it goes off and it does its thing. Okay? In fact, it didn't do a whole lot because obviously we were in the right zone with what we had done already. Okay? And if you want, do your global analysis. Just check. Just make sure. Then go to your uploaded episode. I go to SoundCloud, whatever my thing is. There's my profile. There's the title of my yoke. And then I just upload it. Okay? Simple. It's really, 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 really fun to create something. It's so much fun. It's even more fun when it can be almost heartbreaking for you to try and find your way through that quagmire of that learning curve of recording something. How you record it. Is it distorted? I recorded it in a church and the reverb is just crazy all over the interviews. I won't do that again. You had a dodgy lead. Your microphone. You got your microphone and you were holding it here and you were chatting away to your artist, and because you're not used to interviewing somebody else, you just held a microphone here and the person you're talking to is off mic, and you know the difference in that sound. You will know the difference. And you bring all those recordings home and your head is in your hands. And you go, oh no. But then you go out and you do the interview again, you get it right. And you bring it home. And you go, jackpot. Brilliant. Love. Sounds great. Got the exact information I need. Then you sit down to learn audio editing. And that's scary and daunting and horrible. And then you look at the track inspector and you, oh, what if I do this, 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 and this? And you play with that and you have good fun with that and do a load of cleaning up. And that's brilliant too, right? Now we're getting into a row, because the next interview you go out, I'm not going to record that in a toilet. I'm not going to record that with a dodgy lead on my microphone. I know now that I get my microphone, I say my piece to the question, and then I hand over my microphone to my guest. Or whatever the situation is, you just get better. You build up. You get a war chest of experience. And it just becomes easier. But even with all the hassle, you come to the point that you have a piece of creativity, whether it's audio, whether it's video, whether it's whatever it is, a piece of music. You get the whole thing together, you put it all into WaveLab Cast, you end up with a stereo file to lay back to your video, or that's your podcast. It's now at the correct standard for whatever your platform of choice for delivery is. And you click upload. And suddenly the world can listen to your creativity and something that you find amazing. And if people start listening to it and find it amazing too, they'll want to hear more from you. They'll appreciate what you're doing. They'll love what you're doing. And whatever you do in life, whatever you do in your average day, whether, I don't know, you're an astronaut or a jockey or a whatever, to get away from your average day and have a break and create something, like going off and playing the guitar, it's just heaven. Heaven. So, download WaveLab Cast and start having a play, because it's so much fun. So much fun. And it, as I say to you, it takes an awful lot of the weight of the work away from you. So you don't have to be worrying about all the big crazy stuff like big mixing desks and technology and stuff that it can be so daunting and can really upset your workflow. Let it do all the work for you. You know, it is a seriously good piece of kit. Get yourself the demo. When you start playing with the demo and see how good it is, just enjoy it. Okay. Guys, are you still there? You're all very quiet tonight. You really are. I'm going to love you and leave you. That was pure joy. We've kind of come full circle from initial recordings to mixing to editing to track inspector to working with video to working with music to doing lots of different stuff. And there's loads of gems and nuggets and super information in each show. Okay? And it's only an hour long. So have a listen through to the previous shows. It's a really, really good learning curve. And I hope it's enjoyable for you. But that said, listen, they're there. You can consume them as much or as little as you want and just enjoy them. I hope you enjoy them. It was such fun doing them. And I really thank everyone that's participated over the past however amount of months. It was brilliant. I love seeing you guys in here and even saying hello and your comments and all. So if you do have any questions, talking about comments, if you do have any questions, say with this video, if it evokes some sort of question in your mind, just put it in the comments below the video, because this will be available on the WaveLab Cast, on the WaveLab channel. Okay. And I'll get back to you. I'll try and answer whatever questions I can there. Okay, there's been loads of really, really, really good stuff in the previous shows of people asking this, that and the other. And I've tried to help them out as best I can. So if you have any questions, just put them in the comments below. Yeah? And sure, yeah, we'll see you sooner than later, I hope. Alrighty. Listen, that was a pure joy, people. Have a super weekend. And enjoy the rest of your Friday. And I look forward to talking to you again. Alrighty? See you later. Bye-bye.